Hi, everybody. It's Kelly from the Hub. I am here today with Linda. She works at WellSpan, and we had talked to her last week. She does like fitness stuff, like all the stuff that lots of us don't like, but we know we have to do. So, Linda, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you. How are you, Kelly?
I'm good, thank you. I do feel bad that when we talk about fitness, that a lot of times we have like a frown on our face. So I think I have to make sure that we say fitness with a
Right.
smile on my face every time. It's hard. It's hard to change your habit. So today we're talking about stress management, right? And how all this stuff sort of works together. Because if you're stressed, well, you'll tell us a whole bunch of stuff happens in your body.
It does. That's so very true. And when we think about stress, everyone has stress. And some people say, well, just help me get rid of all my stress. And that's not a good thing because stress is also a motivator. It's also something that allows us to accomplish something in a day's time or to reach a goal that we set for ourselves. So stress isn't all bad. It's how much it is and how do we manage it. That's really the key. Like, how do we manage it so it doesn't take its toll on our physical or our mental health, which is a real problem. We do know that stress is a non-specific response, what our body goes through when change is perceived or changes are going to occur in our environment or in our life. And so it is something that everyone has. And we do know that when we talk about stress and stressors are the situations that cause us to feel all that anxiety and give us a headache or an upset stomach, or I just feel jittery, or I'm just at wit's end. And lately, with everyone having so much on their mind with disease and illness and the COVID-19 and being sequestered in our homes and staying away from family and friends, and there's just been so much lately that we know that stress is really something we have to deal with. So the management of stress is what's really the key. Not that you get rid of all your stress, but that we try to manage what we have in our life that causes us all those stress feelings. And so I developed this little acronym, and it's called the 4 A's to coping. And the first A of coping that I talk about is to be aware of where in your life do you have the most stress? Where are my stressors in my life? And then the next step, though, is to avoid. The second A of the 4 A's is to avoid, meaning let's try to avoid those stressors that are something that can be put on the back burner, or maybe that we can deal in a different time or in a different way.
Okay, I have to say this. About half of the people who are watching right now just went, my kids, how can I avoid them? So we have to talk about that one a little more.
This is true.
Right. It's not that your kids are the specific stressor, it's behavior that your kids have. So what you have to do is figure out how to not get triggered by that behavior.
Absolutely.
Right. Right. So you don't, like, putting your kids in the shed is not a solution to the problem. And you did not say that.
It may cause you more stress in the long run with
Hey,
other things that come from that. This is
right.
true.
Okay. So first I have to be aware of what my stress is and really be specific about that.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Right.
Try to identify where
Like,
are the areas of my life that I have a lot of stress.
I was doing a lot of online grocery shopping. And so grocery shopping is my favorite, like, chore. I love grocery shopping. I just do. So I was doing a lot of online because easier. But then I thought to myself, several weeks ago, I thought, all right, let's go to the grocery store again. Let's try this thing. Let's do it again. And I went to the grocery store and it was horrible experience, horrible experience. I'm not going to talk about why. It was just a horrible experience. So that it created so much stress for me that I said to myself, even though I love grocery shopping, I have to go back to either pickup or delivery because it's not worth that stress in my life. And so I quickly identified that. I still have to get groceries, but I had to figure out a way to manage it. Just like kids, you still have your kids, you got to figure out a way to make that work. All right, so we got 1 and 2.
Absolutely. The third A then is to accept those areas as you have, of those areas of your life that you definitely cannot just avoid. Just ignore it and avoid it. And that's the third step.
Right.
Exactly. Like the kids, like getting groceries for your family.
Right.
Those are things you can't avoid.
Right. So I have to
Absolutely.
go figure out a way to make it work. All right.
Exactly. And then the last step is really critical, and that's to act, take action. Like, we have to think of ways to put strategies in our lives that allow us to cope with the stressors that we can't avoid and that we have to accept as part of our lives. And there's so many right now. And when we think about those things, and we know what stress causes, it really is caused by a thought in your brain. It could be subconscious, or it could be a conscious thought that I don't like doing this, it's something I don't enjoy, and that's a conscious thought. And that puts into play all through our bodies a physiological response to those psychological thoughts. So when I say that, to make it simple, is that how do we look at situations? So when something arises, what's my perception of that stress in my life? How can I change the way I look at this situation and make changes that will allow me to have less of that whole physiological response, which pumps sugar into my bloodstream, which that's why I'm anxious. It makes me maybe make a fist because I'm tense. So then I get stress up into my neck, causes me a headache, and all the other things we talked about, like what do we feel and what do we think when we are under a lot of stress? And so all those things physiologically make sense, that what strategies we put in place will help us to deal with those. And what are some of those strategies? Well,
good.
Some of those strategies, sometimes they're easy to look at, and then sometimes they're definitely not. The first one I always say, because of my background in fitness and health, is that exercise or go move your body if you feel real stress, because we know through stress that now there's all this extra glucose, sugar, going through my bloodstream. So if I can move those muscles, get that sugar used up, it might allow me to relax a bit from that stress. But also the brain, once we get out and move, no matter what that movement might be, it allows our brain to be stimulated to in turn help us refocus on what's
so for people who are working at home, if you've got meetings, or like me, you have meetings back to back, and stop, take 5 minutes or whatever time you need.
Exactly.
And move around. Like, so people who are watching, that's what Linda said to me before we started. I've had several meetings already this morning, and she said, didn't you have a chance to move? And I said, no, because I didn't. And so she said, you have to move after me. And I said, you're right, because it's building up. It's not that I don't love hanging out with you or doing all those things, but you're right. You've got a lot of stuff. You want to make sure you do it right. You got a lot of, so you have to stop and do it. You're right. Good.
Exactly. So I always put exercise or movement, more movement in my life at the top of that stress. It just is what it is. It takes you out, takes you away from that environment temporarily. It could be 1 minute. And the next one I usually list is deep breathing. It's really a nice stress management tool to just take a deep breath, take it in through your nose slowly, and then out through your mouth slowly. Do a couple of those. Allow your lungs to expand. Allow your brain to get that extra oxygen, and your heart to pump that extra oxygen throughout your body to, again, dissipate that sugar and that tenseness that you might feel due to your stress. Deep breathing is one that you can do anytime and anywhere. So even if I was tense right now while we're doing this little discussion we're having, Kelly, I could easily take a deep breath, and you may not even be aware. It's really a discreet way to help reduce my stress.
Right.
And it's the number one way I tell people when you have to do a presentation or sing a solo or do anything like that,
or go to the doctor,
or what?
Or even go to the doctor. I mean, there are people who just going to the doctor gets them stressed out. So if they just, and doctors and nurses always say there's that white coat effect.
Yes.
Like your like blood pressure goes up and your stress levels go up just when the white coat enters the room. So taking a deep breath can help de-escalate all that stuff that's going on in your body. Yeah.
Absolutely. It's really the first two I gave you right there out of maybe 10 strategies. Those are really key, and those that you should be using and maybe are able to use the most.
Yeah.
And even by movement, I mean, maybe just roll your shoulders if you feel real tense.
Right. You
Maybe
don't have to
you
do like a
stretch your arms.
right. You can just do easy things to just get your
Right.
right. Move it around.
Exactly, exactly. Just you moving your arms and whatever, Kelly, might help. But those kind of things are things that would help dissipate the stress response that's physiological now in our body. And
Excellent.
when I said that a stress starts in the brain, how we think about something is pretty important. How do you see a situation? You might see it one way, and I may see it in another way. And you've heard about this when there's an accident maybe, and you both saw it happen. You're standing on the street corner, and you both see it happen. And one says, well, I saw this. And the other one says, that's not what I saw. I saw the light was red and he went right through it, or whatever the case may be. But it's a perception. Yes, it's what we saw, but what did I perceive that I saw? And then in turn, it's a different way to look at it. Let me hear your point of view, you might say, to the other person in so many stressful situations. Let me hear your point of view. And you might convince me that what I saw or what I heard or what I'm thinking or feeling is maybe something that I could change. And that's what's called a paradigm switch. It's where we see something one way, but really through time, we view it and we think about our thoughts about it. And we change that view, that we actually see something else.
Huh.
And when I teach this class and show a picture of something, and then I'll say, what do you see? And it's amazing how half the class or part of the class will see one thing. The other class will say, no, that's not what I see. I see this. And it's the same picture that
Right.
they're looking at from the
Right.
same vantage point, but they
Mm.
see something different. So I ask them, let's think about this. And we go through the whole process of rethinking what we're looking at. And that's how stress manages us. It manages us if we don't allow ourselves to sometimes make that paradigm switch and say, what can I do to minimize the stress I'm feeling? Remember, we can't get rid of all our stress in our life because some's motivational, some isn't, but it certainly is a stress to us and causes us physiological harm. So we want to teach people how to minimize their stress and get through it. Make time for yourself is another one. It's so important to have leisure. People say all the time, one of my biggest stressors is I don't have time for anything. Well, it is not surprising that our stress is because we load so much on our plate, because we have a list that's 10 points long and we only really have time to do 2 of those. It's a part motivator because maybe I'll get at those first few and get them done. But it's also a debilitator, which stress can become, where I have so much on my plate, it doesn't allow me to function at all. That's where it becomes a real problem with depression and non-functioning. I can't function well. So if we can put some of these strategies in place to allow us to get through a stressful situation, it's amazing what it does for our mental health and also our physical health. And so those are some of the things. Create free time, laugh often, take time to talk to someone on the phone or watch a funny movie or something which makes you actually have what we call a belly laugh, like really heartily laugh. And we all know how we feel after we spend a day or maybe a whole weekend with some friends who are fun. And we talk and we laugh. And when we get home, it's just amazing how good, or before we even get home, how good we really feel.
Yeah.
It's that laughter. It's that allowing our brains to free itself of all the minutia of our life and allow us to deal with what's important and also put things in perspective, which is really very important. So be realistic and think about consequences of your stress. Be realistic. Is this a stress that I really want to delve into and stick with and allow it to affect me physiologically? Or is this something that I can really put aside right now? Or is this something where my perception is making it bigger, a bigger stressor than it really is?
Yeah, I think we all have, different ways of coping with those things. And like for me, like little tiny things like the paperclip broke or the pencil lead broke, like little tiny things that I just irritate my soul in the moment. I have to like say, hey, now I can handle a car crash and something else and all those big things, but those little things can be really difficult for me. So I'm going to put your 4A's on my computer because most of the little things sort of happen close to me. You know what I mean? During my day. So if I put my 4A's up on my computer screen or on my laptop, then I can go, aha. I can refer back to it and like keep myself in check for that and let the little things really go.
That's a good idea, a very good idea, to
Yeah.
try to just put things in perspective. And when we are at our wits' end, or we feel like the stress is getting to us, then let's sit back a minute, take a deep breath, which is one of the strategies, a deep breath, a couple of them possibly, and then think about the situation really and put it in perspective in your life and in the day. Because in one day, is it going to make a difference? In 1 week, a year from now, you won't even remember it.
Right.
So we just need to rethink things because stress comes first from a thought in our brain of some type that makes us then get those reactions.
And I think that's also one of those things when you're in it, it's hard. But when somebody else is with you, then you can go, oh yeah, I didn't think about it that way. Sorry. Yeah. Whoa. Yeah. I freaked out over something I should not have at all. And when I used to teach high school, I used to say, like, if a kid did poorly on something, and I would say, if this is the worst thing that happens in this month, then I think you're doing pretty good.
That's right.
And they would go, oh, you're right. So it's super easy to like say it, but it's hard sometimes when you're in the middle of it. So yeah, sometimes you have to have somebody to go, all right, am I seeing this the right way? Yeah.
Exactly. That's a really good example.
Yeah.
I taught too, and I remember those days when I would think, oh no, tomorrow's Monday, and I have 8 classes, and that one student in one class out of 120 students I'm teaching, why would I allow that one class to ruin my day? Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Right.
Change the way I thought about it, change the way I taught that class, change the way I dealt with that one student. It just makes sense. But we need to learn the strategies to do it. We do. And it's a skill. Therefore, it takes practice for sure.
Just like everything else.
Isn't that the truth? And I always end my stress management presentations with, from Henry Ford, who said, whether you think you can or whether you think you can't, you're right. And you think about that. If I think I can get through this, be positive. I think I can. I think I can. And if I can't, maybe I need help to get through it.
Right.
Think positive. It really helps our attitudes. It really helps us deal with our stressors in our life.
But if you have a negative attitude, the opposite is then guess what? You can't.
Exactly.
Keep thinking, well, I can't. Well, guess what? You're not going to be able to then.
Exactly. Yeah. Sounds simple, and it's not. I don't mean to make it sound simple. It is not.
But it's one of those things you have to wrap your head around and say,
you do.
Am I accomplishing this or am I not accomplishing it? And then make that decision and then, do it.
Absolutely. And again, it sounds easy, and it's really not. But we need to tell ourselves, I can do this. I can do this. That positive thinking, or at least thinking positively. And then when we hit a roadblock, how do we get around it? What are the hassles in my life? But more importantly, what are the good things in my life? When I get up this morning, I should just list one good thing about my life.
Yeah.
And hopefully that will carry me through. I might think of 2 or 3 or 4 things. And as the day goes on, I really want to stress the good stuff. Yeah. And not dwell on the negative, because that really does allow our brains not to function well. And it does keep bringing those other things to the top of our thought process, which are many times worrying, negative thoughts. So we do want to do that for sure. We absolutely. I think it is important then to make time for yourself. And what is that? What do you like to do? What do I like to do in my life? Make time for that. It's really very, very important. Read a book, read a magazine. And I always say, watch a 30 minute sitcom on television to make you laugh and relax a little bit. Now, don't watch TV for 4 hours at a time, but you can watch it a half hour now and then and get some enjoyment and also some stress management out of it.
I mean,
Again, it's a balance.
We have a lot of busy parents who watch these interviews, and I know that some of those people are saying to themselves, I don't know what I like anymore, because they've not been putting themselves second, third, or fourth for a long time. But when the stress mounts and mounts and mounts and mounts and mounts and mounts, and someone says, just take time for yourself, they're like, well, I don't know what to do. And I think the answer to that is, that's okay. Don't get stressed, because I mean, you could add more stress not knowing how to relieve your stress. And that's not the point at all. Maybe you just sit and think about it, and that's okay.
It really is okay. We should never minimize the impact that just sitting out in the sunshine for a minute, or on the deck for just 2 minutes and listen to the birds, or close your eyes and meditate or pray, or whatever you need to do. And it could be a minute or two.
Right.
We should find time for those kind of things.
Absolutely.
It will help us, but you're right. Some people are so stressed out over the life of the deadlines and so much to do and no time to do it.
Right.
How do we get around that?
Yeah.
It's the biggest hurdle. I would think the number one thing that people say are my biggest stressors in my life are deadlines, time management, getting everything done in a day's time.
Yeah.
And again, we put a lot of stuff on ourselves. We make lists of all these things we got to get done. Why do we pack
my list, but it's way more than 10 things.
Exactly, that you humanly can get done in that time period. Absolutely.
Right. Linda, thank you so much. This has been truly wonderful. This is going to help. This is going to help people a lot. And this might be one of those videos that people have to rewatch, because you pick up 2 things the first time, and then you pick up 2 more things the next time. And so you might have to rewatch this a couple of times to make sure that you've gotten all the little bits from it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's important too. It is important to glean what you can from what you hear, and try to use it, see what works for you, because we're all different too.
That's right. Absolutely. Yes, sure. Wonderful. Thank you so much. We will chat again.
Thank you, Callie.
Absolutely. See ya.